r/askreddit. What the scariest true story you know.
A guy in a sinking ship found an oxygen bubble and only drank a sip of Diet Coke every 7 hours. He was rescued after 60 hours after being under constant danger from drowning and even sharks.
I've heard about this one. After his rescue, didn't he need to sit in isolation for a few days as pressure was released?
Yep. Being that deep for so long would have caused the bends and killed him if he ascended too quickly. So I think he was put in a decompression chamber for 2 or 3 days.
I don't know if it's scary, but when I was younger, me and my twin brother would help our friend do his paper route. One summer, we could smell something gross coming from one of the houses. We all didn't think anything of it until 3 days later, when the smell was reaching down the driveway. We went to the back door where he normally dropped the paper and noticed it was open. We went in and looked around the house and found the owner dead. He had died of a heart attack and his cats were eating him.
It seems to happen a lot.
Joseph Fritzl imprisoned his daughter in a secret room and in his basement for 24 years and fathered 7 children on her.
I read about this years ago and the whole thing still haunts me. He was such a sick man.
My maternal grandfather, in the days before hot water on tap, put a big pot on to boil before leaving for work for his wife and kids to bathe with. The pot boiled over and extinguished the flame, and he returned to find them dead of carbon monoxide poisoning. My mother was of his second marriage.
That happened to my grandfather. He married a woman, and when he came home from work, he was a jeweler/watchmaker. He found her dead from a gas leak. He went on to marry my grandmother some years late.
I remember my mum telling me about a family she once knew who all died of carbon monoxide poisoning. They lived in the end unit in a row of attached townhomes, and their next-door neighbour decided to commit suicide by running their car in their garage. The neighbour didn't know that the air ducts for all the townhomes were connected, so once he started the car and soon lost consciousness, the fumes travelled through the ducts into the home of the family next door and killed the mother and 2 children while they slept. I don't remember if the father died as well, or if he was at work when it happened, but I know the people who lived on the other side of the units were out of town and spared. As a result, they changed the way townhomes were built so that they didn't have common airflow with connected ducts like that development did.
I'm not sure what the entire story is, but there was a body discovered somewhere in Siberia. His cause of death was freezing, but something was off. Turns out he had been attacked by a tiger. The tiger used his jaws and grabbed the guy by his backpack, picked him up over his head, and slammed him so hard that it snapped both of his femurs. Poor dude lived 3 days after the attack, crawling around in the snow.
At least I can prevent this by not going to Siberia, which I was planning on avoiding anyway.
I worked in forensic medicine. My boss had to perform an autopsy on a chopped-off head that was found by 2 completely traumatized children. The autopsy itself took 7 hours because the person had over 56 different injuries to the head.
The Broken Arrow killings. 2 brothers brutally murdered their entire family. At one point, their young 5 or 6-ish siblings were hiding in the bathroom when one of the brothers pretended to need their help. As soon as they let him in, he killed them.
I saw a video about this case. I think they were also planning to go on a killing spree since they had ordered guns and ammunition that were supposed to arrive on the day they murdered their family.
The silent Gibbon twins, 2 sisters who rarely spoke except to each other. They were sent to separate boarding schools to get them to talk to other people, but entered severe catatatia. They were eventually hospitalized and made a pact that if one of them died, the other must speak and live a normal life. They had a months-long discussion and decided which one should commit suicide. Eventually, one died of heart inflammation with no causes noted on the autopsy. And just moments after the planned time, the other spoke, "I'm free at last, liberated, and at last Jennifer has given up her life for me."
I'm creeped out, but curious. Sounds like something straight out of The Conjuring or something.
There was a guy in my town who stalked women at the furniture store. He would watch women pick out new chairs and he would just linger there and drop these strange comments. That chair would look nice in my den. Then one night he followed one of the women home. He sneaked into their living room and then wait for them to enter the room. He'd then jump out and surprise them. He'd yell, "I knew you took my chair," and he'd scream and chase them. This happened over the course of 5 years. The local police never did anything because he was brothers with the sheriff. Women couldn't buy furniture by themselves. They had to start bringing chaperones.
Reminds me of the story of Whipping Tom. In 17th century London, he was like Jack the Ripper, accosting women on the lonely, foggy streets of London Taiyan. But instead of murdering them, he'd appear, slap their asses, yelling, "Spanko!" and vanish. He was so elusive that he was never caught, not even with men dressed in drag trying to lure him into a trap.
I know it's not okay to touch someone like that, but for being a serial anything, a serial spanker that yells, "Spanko," and runs away is pretty hilarious comparatively to murder.
The blue ring octopus has a venom that causes paralysis, causing people to die of cardia, scariest, or because of hypoxia. There is no antidote. The cure is CPR, or life support for the hour, or so it takes for the venom to leave the body. There was a man who was bitten by a blue ring octopus. As the lifeguard was performing CPR, he was lying on his back on the beach, facing the sky, eyes frozen open, unable to close his eyes or communicate with the others. He lied there as the sun slowly burnt out his retinas. He became permanently blind.
There's a video that pops up often of a girl on Instagram that found one of these in a tidal pool and picked it up, playing with it as it crawled all over her hand.
When my best friend was in uni abroad in Awas, her classmates were doing something related to school at the beach. They found one in a little pool of water and were poking at it, almost picked it up too. They had no idea what it was until later.